So grief in the workplace, right? The importance of work in the work group. It is important to allow a system to grieve too. Not just family, but if you're a true trauma-informed workplace, which you are here, that it's important to understand that there's a loss at work too. There's a loss at work people need to talk about. Not too long ago, I had to reach out, and I'm going to talk about this in a bit, but there was a workplace, human service organization, a social worker who took his life suddenly. He was a child protective services worker. He saw a lot of life that's hard to see, right? And the accumulation of all that work. But there were a few people who knew he was hurting, but just a few. And of course, you know, they were really second guessing themselves and thinking, why didn't we do something about that, right? They were struggling with that. So that particular group needed support. And they all did, because they loved him. They loved him. And they were angry, like some of them were, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us? Darn it. Why didn't you tell us you were feeling bad? Because we get that. We could have helped, right? So you can see all that kind of anger, resentment, you know, all the work. And so don't leave out the work group and the workplace, please. If something happens, don't leave them out. And you know, again, as an organization, you're already going through so many changes. I say this every time I come here. There's some faces that are the same, but there's a lot of new faces, right? There's a lot of new here. A lot of good new, right? But new. And that's hard. So that's a grief process. Changes, right? So you know that all that process is important. Again, your culture, that whole trauma-informed, you can see your values here. I'm going to come back to these in a bit, but you can see that. And communication styles are like grieving styles. We're all a little bit different. We all, right? On the Myers-Briggs, for example, in the first area is the extroversion over introversion. I'm an E, all the way E. I don't have any, you know, right? I'm way. So I need to talk and connect with things outside of myself to figure things out. That's how I am, right? When I was a little boy, my dad used to always say to me, Randy, you need to learn to be a little more diplomatic, because I would always talk before I thought. He was the opposite of me. I'm more like my mom. But he was an I, right? So he thought things through inside. He wasn't, and so when he said something, everybody listened, because he thought about it really deeply. So just like that, we're all different. We're all different. So don't judge. Just notice. Just notice. It's not good or bad. It just is, right? Important. And again, the family dynamics in the workplace. We all bring ourselves into the workplace, right? So you know, sometimes we even create those same dynamics at work. That's good and bad, right? But understand those things. So again, understand the whole, you know, it's like Donna's talking a lot about benefits and how all that, you have those things here. Make sure there's coverage continuity from a benefit standpoint, from a work standpoint, business continuity, because work has to continue to go on. So how do we fill in the gaps? How do we help each other out? And understand that sometimes people might need a break, right? You might just start tearing up. Something just reminded you and you start to sob. Right? I remember just a real big, intense example for me was a 911 dispatcher who took a call from a mom who was in her house searching for her son, her 10-year-old son. She couldn't find him. She called 911, was worried because he had some suicidal ideation. She was worried. So she's on the phone with the 911 call taker, and they're talking as they're going through the house. The 911 call taker is taking her systematically through the house, and they finally got down to the basement and found him. I won't say anything more than that, but he was no longer alive. And she went like this. And that feeling hit the call taker, who's also a mother. She was 3 months pregnant, and all she could think about and feel was the heartbeat of her baby, right? She's a professional call taker. She knows that she has a protocol to follow, calling in EMS and doing all that stuff. And she, for 10 seconds, lost it and started to sob. She didn't admit that to anybody until we had a debriefing, and then she owned it in a confidential setting, and she was worried that people would think she's not good at her job because she sobbed. Wrong. I want her on a 911 call that I want a real human being on that call, right? You see what I mean? So we have to really understand that unexpected feelings can happen. We can be surprised. It can happen.